you're a founder or an entrepreneur. You want to take your company value to 300 million, we gon' show you how to do it. Well, we got the roadmap, the aspirations. We'll give you a game plan and strategies. Seize control of your company's destiny today by tuning in to Private Capital Mastery. Yeah. Let's start the show.
Welcome back to the Private Capital Mastery Podcasting Community. I'm your host, Brian Franco, and today is a special day for me because we are going to talk about a success story of a transaction that we closed back in 2021. It was a time when we were coming out of COVID, and it was a very different time. So I'm honored and pleased to introduce you to Mr. Tim Schultz. Tim, how are you?
Good, Brian. How are you?
I'm great. I mean, it's been a few years actually since we've seen each other in person, and you know, when I saw you today, I'm like, you look retired. You look too relaxed.
Yes, it's good. So it's been a short time, but it's been good. You know, it's been great.
So officially, you retired in
February.
Of 24.
24.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It went fast.
Yeah.
Career flew by.
It does.
You know?
Well, they say the days are long, but the years are short.
Yes.
Right.
And I, been chatting with a lot of people. I mean, really, and we all talk about this. You know, the most valuable thing you have is time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And I almost feel like I'm back in high school.
Yeah.
You know, where we're at today is kind of area that I grew up in. So, it's, I remember...
A little nostalgic for you?
A little nostalgic because I remember growing up here, I would spend so much time. I had a little sailboat.
Oh, that's fun.
I'd spend my days before I figured out what I wanted to do in my life. Yeah. Going up and down here in Newport Harbor. Yeah. I shouldn't say this, but I had some beer in my little sailboat. And my parents were,
Extra root.
Yeah, my parents were, are you ever going to graduate high school? I'm like, yeah, eventually,
I love that. Yeah, they still have those little sailboat classes out here.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of hard to learn.
One of my sons did it, and he enjoyed it. It was fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So your firm, you had a partnership with Kevin. Pacific Cornerstone Architects in San Diego. And we ultimately, as the world knows, we sold or merged your group with HED Design. And so I want to revisit that. And it's been a while since I've talked about the details of this, but I just want to focus on your experience because the Private Capital Mastery Podcast is there ultimately to collapse time, right? We don't have a lot of time here on Earth. And so our vision has always been to collapse time by way of provoking thought and educating founders and entrepreneurs of companies to understand what's available out there in terms of capital, whether that be capital for growth or capital for an exit like yourself, right? So I want you to just dive into that memory. But when you engaged our firm, right? Can you describe how Meritage really tailored our process to you? And you have to remember there's two captains of that ship, right? You and Kevin, right? And you guys have Kevin still working with HED.
Yep.
So it goes to show you both had different horizons, right? But how do we personalize that for you guys? Yeah,
the whole scenario for us started through a good friend of ours. We both share, two guys, the Hope and Munson team.
Yes.
And when they had done their merger with Kaufman Engineering, Kaufman Engineers, I was really kind of thinking about, because I was the older of the two partners, what's my strategy here? Yeah. And it's about relationships, I think. When you become partners, Kevin is a good friend of mine, and Chuck and Jim are good friends of mine. Yes. And really understanding what they went through. So I went to them to find out how they did it. And the first, they gave me a couple names, but they said the guy you got to talk to is Brian Franco.
All right.
Because, it's that you found the right fit for them.
Yes.
And I think for us and the folks that worked for me and Kevin, it was also about them.
Yes.
I've been fortunate.
It was a big part.
It was a big part. I had some early mentors in my life that got me to where I'm at, and I still, there's one partner who you never met who retired from my firm, back in the early 2000s. that set me on my way early on in my career when I worked with him at another firm.
That's great.
And so, struggling during that time frame, COVID was not fun for a lot of folks. No. We had a great practice. We had a life science type firm, really ingrained in the San Diego market for over 25 years. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't want to walk away from it, but I did want to get some value out of it. And Correct. So I was trying to figure out how to do that.
Yes.
And it's always hard. It was hard at that time frame. You could, sell net book value and all that. And
Correct.
It's pretty.
All these formulas and variations. But to your point, I remember vividly. You wanted to harvest the wealth
yes.
that you had in the business, all while creating a pathway and a roadmap for your partner Kevin.
Yes.
Who is still with the acquiring party, right? And, and doing. I think you said he's a principal now, or
both of us, came over as principals, and he is really ingrained in the company over there right now. Mm. I mean, I always teased him. I go, they bought us because they want you. I'm the old guy.
Hey, that's right. But your wisdom contributed to the development of the firm. It sounds like you had a mentor, early partner in 2000 that retired.
Yeah.
And I had the same. Craig Trask was instrumental when I founded Meritage Partners in 2005 at age 26. I was a kid. Yeah. And I didn't know. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Right. Yes. I had a similar conversation with somebody just yesterday like that. Yeah. And I think there's a point in your life when you get to a point where I think I heard this in an old country western song, but you get to a point where you stop and look back and help those that are coming behind you.
Pay it forward.
Yeah. And it was a prime example. There's a young man that worked for us at Pacific Cornerstone, PCA.
Yeah.
His father was a good friend of mine, was an architect, and worked for a developer in town called Kilroy Realty. And his father's since passed away. But Brian will be a third-generation architect when he gets licensed. Wow. So he interned with me when he was in high school and through college.
Yeah.
And ended up getting hired at HED, and he's a young rising star there.
See, this is what we always preach, because you have partners, you have key employees, you have rising stars, right? And so, as a owner of your firm, your PCA, right, you want to make sure that you're not just, hey, I cashed out, I'll see you guys later, good luck. Yeah. It was very clear to me that, as it is with most service providers, you want to make sure that they're staying and they have a pathway. And sometimes a national firm that's acquiring a smaller firm could give opportunity to employees to move different states or geographic regions.
Yes, and that has been an unbelievable gift from HED to the PCA folks.
That's amazing.
One person in our office, Randy Chumley, who worked for me for 25 years, is now living in Texas.
Okay, there you go.
Still working for HED.
Yeah.
And working with the San Diego team and also the team in Dallas.
Yeah.
And it's thriving.
That's great.
And as my smaller firm, it would be hard to do that.
Yeah. No, it would, because then you would have to replicate the model there, and which requires the investment of the office, and you think you'll do okay, you don't know till you're there, and just everything we struggle with when it comes to growing pains as a small business. That's great to hear. I'll ask you too, because once we got to the place, because if I remember correctly, you were looking at, do we sell internally, do we sell externally, right? And the determination at that point, like Chuck and Jim, was you could offer everyone you're leaving behind after you retire a better opportunity with a larger firm, right?
Yeah, and internally, we worked on that for a number of years, and it was, there's I don't want to say this wrong, but there's a younger generation that may not have that total entrepreneurial spirit, and sometimes when I got involved with PCA, when we created it, there were 4 of us, and it was back in 1994, and it wasn't a great time. Coming out of a recession, but we jumped all in. Yep. I didn't take a paycheck for 9 months. I had 2 young children. I think at the end of the day, I had, before first paycheck out of the company because we were putting everything back into it.
Yeah.
I think I had $500 to my name in my bank account.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of work. So, I mean, I had this innate feeling inside of me that this is all going to work out because you had everybody pulling together. And the types of folks when we started hiring employees were those types. And we had, I mentioned Randy. Randy was there with me really since the beginning. Her office manager, Janet Boyer, guy named Jim Darby, a whole host of people that had been with us for over 20 years that had left and come back to the company.
It'd be hard to replicate that today.
It is hard to replicate that. And I talk about that. And I know I've been blessed to work in my career for some firms that are like that. That HED is the largest firm I was ever part of. Earlier in my career, I worked at Ware Malcolm Architects when it was small, here in Orange County, and I was down in the San Diego office. And, I learned a lot through osmosis because I was just this young.
That's the best way I've learned, just by way of osmosis.
So it's been, inherent in my whole background to kind of take risks, except for when I was out here on the bay.
You're kind of taking a risk on the sailboat.
Yeah.
But it was a different type of risk.
It was a different kind of risk. I mean, I thank my parents and, even my older sister and brother-in-law, because they all I always thought I was going to be a professional surfer. That was my goal. Never going to happen. But they called them, use the term, they called them my screw-off years. I didn't go abroad. Southern California, when I was growing up, was it's still a great place.
It has so much to offer.
So much to offer. Yeah. So, and that's why I've spent my life here. I just love it here. So it's been an amazing run. It's not like over. I'm not done.
Yeah, by no means.
But
well, I'm glad to hear that because it's. I did not realize you grew up out here until today. So that's. To have you here, it's meaningful for that reason too.
Right
not just to have you here with me, but
just looking over there, it's like, oh my gosh, all those. Times I got in trouble over there.
Over in Lido Village.
Yes.
So if you remember when we were pitching, you and Kevin, we always self-identify ourselves as sharpshooters in the market, right? We're not going to go to market with the client and shotgun blast the market so everyone knows and we lose control of the data and we lose control of the information. So as that sharpshooter, we were able to pitch it to you and then prove it to you, but what was your perspective on how did you perceive us as in terms of pinpointing the right targets for you guys?
I think you guys really took the time to get to know us, right?
Yeah.
That was super important.
Absolutely.
And we started out. I think there were 4 or 5 names you had, and then we narrowed it down, and then we had calls with several, and then when the HED folks kind of came along, got introduced to them. I think we were on a conference call with them, and just all of we were talking with
There's a few groups. We narrowed it. It was the funnel. We started at a few hundred, then we came down to a dozen, then we came down to about a half a dozen.
Yeah, and when we got to that point with with the HED folks, at that time frame, it was right in the middle of COVID. Had just really started hitting. Right?
Yeah. In fact, we were already on the market.
Yeah.
During COVID, and we looked at each other as, okay.
How's this going to go?
Yeah.
How's this going to go? So
that was just another layer of complexity that we just handled it. We didn't. No one had a plan.
No one had a plan. We still had our business to run, and we worked through a lot of different issues during that time frame.
Yeah.
And we were in negotiations with HED. Yeah. We were going through back and forth. Due diligence.
And negotiations.
Letter of intent and all that good stuff. And then it got put on hold, and both firms went back to working, and then it got resurrected again. And
I remember that. And to your point, in and around, getting to know you guys, right? So this is important because we need to manage the expectations of our client, and getting to know them allows us to understand what was your horizon, what was Kevin's horizon, what was important for you, both as individuals, but also as the company collectively. And we pride ourselves on our core strengths of negotiating, right? These transactions, because in enterprise value, although we might take different roadmaps, we get to in and around the same range, right? And when I say we, I mean, both, acquirers and sellers in the marketplace. But what's really important is the deal terms, right? Because, somebody could have come in and said, I'll give you $20 billion payable at $1 per month, right? And we're just going to say no, because those terms are ridiculous. And the valuation's great, right?
Yeah, the valuation's good.
But, when it came to meeting those objectives in terms of, valuation and deal terms, and I'm trying to think of all the other nuances, because there again, I mean, you had a different horizon than Kevin.
Yeah.
But we were able to build a deal where you just retired as you planned.
You were able to help build that deal for both of us, because each of us had, like you said, different horizons and different ideas of where we wanted to go.
Yes.
So that employment agreement, if you will, was negotiated independently for Kevin and myself.
That's right.
Based on where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so that was all up front, and I had no idea how all that was to take place.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never sold a business like that before.
Yeah.
So, and then how the structured on the payout and all those other good things.
Course.
And it was really interesting for me. It was really learned. I thought I was smart in business.
Yes.
But that level of depth of knowledge and being kind of, I want to say, spoon feeding it to us to where we could.
Yeah, in bite-sized pieces, I say.
Yeah,
right?
because there's a lot to it.
There is.
And it for me personally was fantastic.
Yes.
Some people say you timed it right. I excuse me. I would love to, if I could. I think this is an exciting time to be in the profession. There's so much going on with architecture and AI and all this other good stuff.
Of course, yeah.
But
we see it too.
I can't believe I'm the ripe old age of 67. I'm not. I could still work and all that other good stuff, but I have the ability to play a little bit, which I enjoy. And like I said, I feel like a teenager again because
That's good.
Your day's free. I'm going to do this in the afternoon. And a lot of that is.
Does that mean we're going paddleboarding after this?
You can go paddleboarding.
I'm kidding with you.
You could do that.
But I'm glad to hear that, because it comes down to, these transactions require that effective communications. And we also realize for some of our clients that have never been through this type of process, if we just front load all this information, all this data, it's overwhelming.
Yes.
And what that really means to me is that you trusted us because you knew that we were aware what was around the corner, what was to come, and you trusted us through this process, because had we front loaded you with, all right, we're going to go through employment agreements, we're going to go through networking capital, we're going to go through purchase price allocations, you're going to be like, whoa.
Yes,
Wait a minute.
Would have been overloaded on top of everything else that we were doing with at that time, and with COVID starting and stopping, I think we were about an 18-month, 19-month process.
That was normal at that time.
Yeah.
18 months was completely normal. After COVID, I mean, 6 to 8 months was the new norm, right? And so we're seeing it normalize at about 8 to 12 now in terms of entire process, soup to nuts. But you're absolutely right.
And I think that's good, because you really, even during that process, you get to know that other firm a little more intimately.
Yes.
And I think you promoted us to ask any and all types of questions to these folks. Yeah. And, it's always like, I call it the Wizard of Oz, the smoke and mirrors. You open the curtain, because you're bearing your soul on your company.
You are.
And we ran our company just very conservatively.
Yes.
We didn't load up anything on, we had company cars, that was about it. But everything else was
very clean.
Very clean, didn't have a lot of personal things in our company and all that kind of stuff. And HED's the same way. And, they opened the curtain up for us. And, we had, I think you remember Tog, he financial side of our CPA, looked through their stuff as well, like you did. And, there were no red flags. And I think having folks like you around would have said, hey, and the big thing of it to me as well is you wouldn't have brought people to us that had issues.
Well, I mean, you bring in a good point, because, we did have multiple parties, we had multiple conversations and management calls, but it really, we never saw any of those as an exercise of utility, because it gave you and Kevin the opportunity to, by way of comparison and to compare and contrast,
right,
who's right for us, right? And sometimes finding out who's wrong for you helps you see, who's right. And that's what we did. And I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, but it gave you guys the confidence in your decision. When you said yes to HED, it wasn't like you're tossing and turning that same day.
There was no hesitation to kind of back away from that.
Yeah. That's important.
I will say this, because as we were getting closer and we were coming way out of COVID, we had so much work kind of lined up. We're like, should we or shouldn't we? I remember saying to Kevin, I was like, we just don't have the staff to do all this work. And the interesting thing that we did for HED in San Diego, they'd been down there for 15 years, but that first year we grew their office. We doubled that office in size. Wow. And
within a 12-month window?
Yeah, less than 12 months.
Wow, so you doubled the firm,
the San Diego office,
in that market.
Yeah, not just with the people we brought over, but the additional. I think by the end of that year,
impressive.
We had another 30 people there.
Yeah,
besides the group.
By the way, that's typical in a 2 to 3 year window.
Yeah,
but
that was
to do that
year.
Under 12 months is impressive.
Yeah, and
kudos to you guys.
So then the revenues and all that kind of followed that.
Yeah.
And one of the great things that I really admire with Peter and his team, how they negotiated. He was very fair with us.
Absolutely.
And they allowed us, other firms that they'd merged with, over the years, allowed us to
chat with them.
Yeah. Wasn't like they were listening in on the calls. But that was very important for us. And then the other part that got negotiated in there was a bump in,
That's right.
If you do X, it's like
performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was never like you have to. Here's the pressure. The numbers were the numbers, and I wasn't worried about.
It was the sweetener we added in the negotiations, and it really was. I mean, it turned out great. And look, I'd love to have these interviews, right after closing, but this is unique because this is the first interview that we've done where it's years later, and so to have you explain the whole journey from when we met to going to market to pausing on the market due to this new illness we heard about, COVID, right? This new disease. It's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do, to closing it, and then here you are retired after a few months, and it's interesting. So with that perspective, I'm going to ask you about that, because again, most clients that we sit with, they haven't experienced all of this yet, right? They're still in the integration.
Yeah, the integration phase, right? Yeah. Because you've run your business a certain way, and all of a sudden the accounting's different. This is different. That's different.
Timekeeping. Yes.
And one thing that HED allowed me to do, I think we talked earlier before we started. I was allowed to continue to be me.
Yeah.
And that's an important piece, I think, to wherever you firms go to.
Absolutely.
That you have a method of operating and doing your practice.
Yeah.
So that's how they are.
Yeah. And what that means to me is they allowed you to do what you were good at, to step into your power zone and really excel. Because if you didn't, and with the network that you have and the relationships that you had and have contributed to you doubling the revenue there. I mean.
Yeah, and
if you're busy and inundated with work and production, I mean, you would have had no time to do that.
No time to do it. And it also allowed me to chase much larger projects.
Wow. Oh yeah, because from a RFQ standpoint, you were. What did that do for you?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, the in-house marketing side of HED is fabulous.
Wow.
And I thought myself was a good writer, but You get you have a team, that supports you with that, and
they tell the story.
And
they tell it well.
It's coming. I don't want to say we were a boutique firm, but we had a nice little niche and all that. And all of a sudden, you've got this whole portfolio that, like, wow, 112-year-old company, and you've got.
Is that what they are? 112.
Wow. Maybe now about 114.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just the depth.
It is amazing.
They're very. design-orientated firm, with a lot of great people over there.
Yeah.
And they really treat their people well and want to take care of you. I mean, I've met some, friends in other cities, and are going to be lifelong people that I stay in touch with now.
I love that. And I really love that because I want to share a stat with you. And that stat, it's been surveyed that 75% of sellers, so companies, individuals that sold their company, are not satisfied post-closing.
Oh, so that's too bad.
75%, right? Yeah. And so I like to contribute. What I'm hearing is you and Kevin are very satisfied there,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And what that means is we not only found the right partner, right, at that moment in time. I mean, you're reflecting now. I mean, they're still the right partner to the point where Kevin's still there.
Yeah, Kevin was there. My daughter's a landscape architect, and
is she with the firm?
She was with the firm, no longer there.
Yeah. Okay.
She's kind of call her,
But she must have learned so much
she's
in that situation.
She joined. She had her smaller practice in San Diego, and she joined up with HED. I was there 3 years as well.
Very cool.
And just recently had an offer for a different position. But she,
the market's competitive.
It's very competitive right now.
Very competitive.
But yeah, no, I mean, I would not have, brought my daughter in there if I didn't believe in the folks.
Especially your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's great to hear.
So it's good.
Well, reflecting, on all of this, I mean, how likely would you, if you had to do this again, how likely would you recommend Meritage Partners?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No hesitation.
Good.
Yeah.
And how, I shared that stat with you, but on that same percentage rating, how satisfied were you guys with the sale?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's no second guessing it.
Yeah.
None
That's
at
amazing.
all.
Yeah.
For me, getting into a firm that, we had a great accounting system, a whole group that helped us with that, but, it got to the point where the business was starting to run me.
I see what you're saying.
And you're trying to juggle all these hats.
Yeah.
I love all that stuff. I think
I get,
every day is a little bit different,
Yes.
When you're doing that, which is great. But the minute you get that load off your shoulders, it started, I think we closed on April 12th. It was a Sunday night,
Yeah, in fact.
And don't close it, you only close at the end of December. Mid-year, early year mergers are not.
Yeah, you're right. Good memory. April 12th.
Yeah.
April 12th, 2021 was our closing.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's a good memory.
And, but not having to, you still got to do billing and all that stuff.
You do, but it's
a different
mindset.
It's a different
at
mindset,
that point,
yeah.
right? Because when you were where you were, especially during that time, is payroll and.
Yes.
Do we hire new people? When do we hire them? Does the work come first, or does the new hires come first?
Right.
These are all the growing pains that we encounter as entrepreneurs.
IT, all those things that come along with that, your computer systems, the money, and da.
It's humbling.
It's humbling, and coming in there, as a principal and part owner in the company, you at HED, we were able. What I really loved about the company too, as well, is the regimen on business.
Yeah. Yes.
Kevin and I came in with a different mindset because we were kind of seller doers. And they loved that concept because we understand a lot of things.
Yeah.
And seeing how a large firm works and how they have to cut the pie into different markets that they're in, and so each business, I was in the life science and tech side of things.
That's right.
Targets and all these other things.
Yeah.
So there's a common business plan that's continually updated.
Yeah.
It was
It's always evolving.
It was always evolving,
Yeah.
and the opportunities, and to go chase, yes, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have a whole depth of knowledge behind you.
Yeah.
That two guys in a firm the size we were didn't have.
I'm glad to hear that because it's there again. You find, when you put these transactions together, everyone's happy, everyone's on a high because they're high-fiving and toasting a champagne. And but to come back to this years later, it's a first for me, and I appreciate you coming out and spending the time with me and on the podcast, sharing the story. And,
no problem.
And love to stay in touch and And I don't know what you're going to get to in retirement, but if you have any fun, give me a call. I'm sure you will.
I definitely will.
I'll come get into trouble with you. Well, thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
You. And thank you for joining this episode of the Private Capital Mastery Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode as another success story of the work that we do and we continue to do on a day-to-day basis. If you find yourself in a place where you're considering some sort of capital raise for growth or some sort of liquidity event, we encourage you to reach out to us at Meritage-Partners.com. I'm your host, Brian Franco of the Private Capital Mastery Podcast, and I'll see you next week.